Hello and welcome to the very first episode of No Low Balls. I Know What I Got. Basically, the point of this podcast is for people to come on and uh, talk about cars, talk about buying cars, talk about selling cars, Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace experiences. I've already recorded quite a few, so I know that we get off topic sometimes, and we'll talk about all kinds of stuff: motorcycles, adventures. It doesn't really matter. Um, we're going to start off talking about cars and car experiences, buying, selling, trading, all that kind of stuff. And wherever it takes us, however the mood strikes, that's where we'll go. Um, I'd just like to start off by introducing myself. My name's Grant, and I have a car problem. I've owned hundreds, over 100 vehicles. Um, some of them really terrible, a lot of them pretty good. Um, I should have been writing them all down at some point before I forget. I should put a list together of cars I've owned. But there's one in particular that I'd like to tell you about today. My parents live in Owensboro, Kentucky. There's a small little, well, obviously there's a few car lots there and major dealers, but there's a little car lot called Tap Motors that we like to drive by and check out. And this was about 10 years ago at this point. We were driving through there, kind of as we do, and I saw kind of across the parking lot there was a W124, so uh, 90 early 90s, late 80s E-Class Mercedes. I could even tell from across the parking lot that it was a little wide. The stance was different, like it was a little wider. Um, had the little bit had the little bit better wheels on it, sat just a little differently. So I kind of hopped out of the car, ran right over there to it. Sure enough, the closer I got to it, I didn't even need to run around to the back of it. E500. I had just stumbled across a backlot E500 at a small car lot in Owensboro, Kentucky. I kind of peer in. Now, I don't think they price anything on their lot. You can look on the website to find their prices. But I saw the E500 badge, and so that already tells you this was a little later one. This was a facelift E500. The first ones were 500Es, still great cars, but the facelift makes it a little bit better. Looked in, and they called this car the Flares with 4 chairs. So it was a little bit wider, so it had fender flares, not like stick-on fender flares. It was a wider built car, um, and it also obviously had the two buckets up front, two bucket seats, but it had the coupe rear seat, which was basically a bench that was kind of cut down the middle with a console. They only, other than the coupes, they only put it in that E500. So I knew from the jump exactly what it was. It was the real deal, unmessed with. Had a little bit of rust around the antenna, and maybe I think there was a little bit kind of creeping up below the body trim, the body molding on the side of the car. But overall, the paint was shiny. Interior was super nice. And I think the car was pushing 200,000 miles. If it didn't have 200, it was pretty close. And so, not knowing instantly what the price is because it wasn't marked up, the price wasn't marked on the car. I kind of ran in, and this is the kind of place this is called Tap Motors. Boom, there's Tommy Tap. Yeah, I'm doing some name dropping. Bam, Tommy Tap meets us in there, and he said, "Well, how can I help you?" And my dad has been in there a bunch. He at the time he had a little car lot a few miles away, and he liked to go in there and kind of wheel and deal with Tommy and the Taps. Um, I said, "Well, yeah, I'm interested in this junky old Mercedes right here on the back lot here." And he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah. I can't remember what the price he shot, but it was 48 or $4,500. And you'll have to remember this is 10 years ago, but even then they were doing uh, 8, 10, 12 was 12 was a lot of money for one back then. But from what I remember, 10 was pretty solid normal number for one. I guess that was nice. That had some service history and didn't really need a whole lot. Um, and I almost just shook his arm right off right then. But we kind of walked out. He threw me the keys, let me drive it around. Um, I saw the title, and the title said 1995, 4 or 5. I think it was mine was a 4. 1994 E420. And so I thought, oh man, this thing, somebody's made a clerical error on this and cost somebody a bunch of money. Um, Even though on the back of it, it says E500 in the original emblems that haven't been pulled off. I mean, this car hadn't been painted or anything. Like it was nice, original spec car. So after I saw that, I thought, man, here we go. So the E420s, even now, don't command the prices that the E500s do for lots of reasons. The main reason is the E500 is a rare car that were built on a Porsche. Um, they were basically kind of passed back and forth a couple different times from Mercedes to Porsche. Porsche wasn't doing too well at the time, and Mercedes needed, I think it was a wider um, assembly line, so they built built parts of it at Mercedes, sent it to Porsche to get parts of it done. Um, Super cool car, super rare car. And now, so back, let's go back a little bit. He shot me a price. It was 40 something, $4,800. And I said, well, I'll buy it today if the price starts with a 3. And so he said, he went inside, wrote down 39999, and I said, absolutely, Tommy, let's do it. I'll take it. Um, I said, I wasn't carrying any. I think I just sold a C-Class Mercedes, 202 body style, and had the money. Didn't have it on me. Don't carry $4,000 or $5,000 cash around. I probably should for times like this. But he let my dad write. I don't have checks either. My dad busts his checkbook out, cuts a check for it, lets us drive off in it. And it was an amazing car. I put gas in it. I went straight, put gas in it. Car ran and drove great. And like I said, this was 10 years ago. I was living in a condo that I owned at the time. We were trying to get some money together to buy a house. And I didn't have a garage. It was parked kind of in the parking lot behind my condo, busy area of town. And then I started looking up what body panels on this thing cost, and I kind of just spooked myself. And so I sold it. I think I owned it for about 36 hours. Sold it to a guy I worked with at the Mercedes dealer at the time, and did pretty good. For the time and how long I owned it, anytime you can double up on something, I'm gonna pretty much let it go. I don't think I've ever turned down doubling up on a vehicle. I just recently doubled up on a Mercedes, and I couldn't say no. So I'm still doing it. 10 years later, still not turning down doubling up on your cash. And so anyway, I sold it, doubled my money, freed up some money. I ended up buying a 94, 95 Miata Montego Blue spec. It was not spec. It was it was prepped to do autocross. The guy was a pretty serious autocrosser. All he did with it was autocross. Like if you looked at the tires were just completely feathered, all four tires. I just wanted something. At that point, I'd owned a few Miatas, first gen Miatas, and it was just a fun car to drive. It was super tight, had a newer engine, had a bunch of receipts with it. The guy was just a real enthusiast. And for myself at the time, a lot cheaper to fix, probably a lot less to go wrong. But fast forward 10 years, and I think I paid $3,500 for this Miata, $4,000. But hindsight being what it is, you fast forward 10 years, and that Miata, if you could still find a Miata in that shape, which they're out there, would be worth 10 or 12 grand maybe. It was because, like I said, it kind of had everything. It had good coilovers, good wheels and tires, full diagonal roll bar, all the good stuff. It'd be worth 10 or 12 grand. That the guy I sold that E500 to, his grandma, I think last time I talked to him a few years ago, his grandma was driving it. So as the infamous story goes, church on Sundays, he had spent a bunch of money on it. And being that era Mercedes, it needed all the wiring harness gone through. So I think that car's had a whole new wiring harness, springs, oil leaks, all the normal old car stuff, plus all the normal 124 chassis Mercedes stuff. But all that just to say, that car, even with 200 and something thousand miles on it, would probably do 20 to 25,000, maybe even more. I mean, that seems like the rare versions of the 124 are going crazy right now. There was just that Hammer that did, which obviously that E500 is not a Hammer, but it's also not worth $750,000, which that Hammer just sold for on MB Market. But yeah, so I had fun with the Miata, and I got to say that I owned the E500. I experienced it, super fun car to drive. But that, of all the 100 plus cars I've owned, that would be the car that if I could get something back, that would be a forever car for me. I'd keep it. I own a '94 E320 station wagon estate, and it's a pretty good car, solid car. I just love that era Mercedes. They're solid. Everything is just tight, and the leather feels good. Or in this case, in my current case, the MB Tex feels great. And you can just tell they're solidly put together vehicles. And this car was, my wagon was a couple $1,000s, and it's great for that. But it reminds me of how good that E500 was, because the wagon definitely needs some love. But yeah, that was by far one of the best cars I've had. I know I'll never have another one, because if I ever have $20,000 or $30,000 to spend on a car, it won't be an old 90s Mercedes. But yeah, that's the kind of stories to expect out of this podcast. I think this is the golden hour of this podcast, and we've just barely started, because right now there's not going to be any advertisements, and that's great. I love listening to podcasts without advertisements, but you better believe the minute I can sell out, I'm selling out. We're going to have this thing advertised up. So enjoy it while there's no advertisements. If you have any funny or cool car stories, hit me up on Instagram. It's no lowballs. I know what I got. Or Dan Grant. Get at me on at either one of those Instagram pages. And yeah, that's what to expect out of the podcast. Welcome to the first one. And from here on out, we should have them pretty regular. Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe, share. Obviously, we're going to be on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can find your podcasts. That's it. Thanks for listening. Take it easy.